In our nation's 250-year history, never has it ever denied any group of people their right to own firearms for their self-defense, protection of their lives and their children and wives. Never has this country ever undermined any groups of people their right to own firearms. No American citizen. Now, recently, in the 1960s, in our history, unscrupulous lawmakers began passing laws on a state-by-state level denying convicted felons the right to own firearms. There were very few of these people known as convicted felons back then, and these lawmakers, when they denied this group of people their rights to own firearms, they could never see down the road 50 years later, when there would be millions of these men living in our society, living honest lives with wives and children, and yet have no right to protect their own very life against violent crime. And violent crime has increased 100%. And you've got hundreds of thousands of ex-felons living in our nation, in the millions, who their lives are in danger while they are living honest lives. And these unscrupulous lawmakers who passed the laws in state laws denying convicted felons their rights, they were wrong. They were violating this group of people's constitutional right to bear arms, the Second Amendment. And we must realize that this is an evil. This is wrong, and we have to change this. Many states permit ex-felons to own firearms. Texas does, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, Maryland, Missouri, New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, and Alaska all let convicted felons own firearms under state law. But now let's look at federal law. Under USCA, Title 18, Chapter 44, that's USCA, Title 18, Chapter 44. This is the federal code that prohibits a convicted felon under federal law to buy and sell firearms. It is against the federal law for a convicted felon to buy and sell guns like a gun dealer, an underground gun dealer, to drug dealers and gang members. It is against federal law to do that. But merely owning a firearm under federal law is not against the law under this code, simply because the code simply says before a convicted felon may be arrested for owning a firearm under federal law, he must be in interstate commerce. And interstate commerce means you are buying and selling firearms on a large scale underground to drug dealers and gang members. And the federal code does not give federal prosecutors the authority to come to a state and arrest a convicted felon for merely owning a firearm in his home to protect his life and his life of his wife and children. Now, there have been cases where federal prosecutors, and they are big-headed, by the way, every prosecutor has a big head on his shoulders, and he thinks he has the green light to go ahead and arrest anybody he wants. And some of these prosecutors throughout our nation have arrested a convicted felon for merely owning a firearm, claiming that, well, he bought that firearm and it was made in another state, and therefore it falls under interstate commerce. Well, when these prosecutors overextended their power in these cases and arrested an ex-felon for merely owning a firearm, the federal appeals judges dismissed the case, saying that to arrest a convicted felon, one must first be in the business of selling and buying firearms on a large scale. The right to bear arms has been upheld in this nation under federal law, even for convicted felons, ex-felons, to be able to own firearms and for self-defense and protection of their family and children. Now, under this same federal code, under USCA, Title 18, Chapter 44, if you are a convicted felon, you don't want to take a chance and having a gung-ho prosecutor overextend his power and arrest you for owning a firearm. Here's what you can do. If you're kind of shaky on that situation, you're poor, you're just a working man, you don't need the problems of a federal prosecutor arresting you and destroying your life, destroying your job and your home and your family. Most prisoners who go to prison, by the way, they lose their wives and children. So the federal prosecutor is directly, in these type incidences, the federal prosecutor is guilty of literally destroying a man's life when they arrest a convicted felon for owning a firearm. And if you want to play it safe and you just don't feel easy about owning a firearm because of the federal government says you can't, or because these federal prosecutors might just arrest you, then here's a safeguard. Under the USCA, Title 18, Chapter 44, the type of firearms that are exempted under this law, that means there is a type of firearm you can own as a convicted felon under USCA Title 18, Chapter 44. A type of firearm that federal authorities cannot in any way, shape, nor form use this code, this interstate commerce code. There is no possible way for them to arrest you for owning what is called antique replica muzzleloader black powder firearms. These are firearms that require powder ball cap loading. You can buy any pistol, rifle, or shotgun and use these for self-defense, and you have absolutely no fear of your life being destroyed for you simply owning a firearm for self-defense. You may own black powder, muzzleloader, antique replica firearms under federal law. But now remember, under your state law, you still may be prohibited from owning that. So some of these states are so socialist, hardline on crime, police states like Massachusetts, New York, California, Chicago, Illinois. These places here, they want to definitely keep firearms out of the hands of ex-felons, convicted felons, and they don't care if their little children are murdered and raped in front of them. They don't care if these men are now victims of violent crimes. They just want to promote their hardline on crime policies and be portrayed in the eyes of the people as great defenders of the poor victims and get elected on the hardline on crime platform. Call your state representative, call your state senator, send him this video, and ask him to re-examine the laws concerning convicted felons and firearms. Thank you.